Hey everybody, Blair Nightingale here, Stock Talk Thursday. We are back. Man, we have been busy all day over here at Tradeway doing the Word on Investing Summit. Word on Investing Summit. That is actually our podcast at Tradeway. We do have a podcast, the Word on Investing podcast. We've had a lot of really amazing guests from the trading world, just from the business and entrepreneurial world. So much a part of who we are here at Tradeway really combines both of those as we ultimately are helping folks like you know how to get those business skills and ultimately apply them to the easiest at-home business that we think that you could pursue today in the United States, which of course is your at-home trading business. And man, I tell you, the sessions have been amazing. That's free if you're not with us on that Word on Investing Summit. I'm going to pop a link in here before we wrap up so that you guys can join us, because I highly recommend that you jump over there. But we've been going at that all day. Today we had Mr. Tom Sosnoff and others on there. That was my personal favorite. For those of you who understand some of the platforms already of trading, he developed some of the best. So that's been really amazing. Jeffrey, my friend, is on here right now, and he was with us on the summit as well. So that said, everybody, glad to have you on here. We are ready to rock. I'm excited. As always, today is straightforward. Today is going to be simple. I was thinking about how do we kind of just slow it down a bit instead of jumping into a new concept or some other way of looking at hot stocks like we've been doing. The market actually is pulling back a little bit right now. The market itself has really been the hottest things. We had an opportunity last week to look at some stocks that are stratospheric, or they call, sometimes it's described to say they're in blue sky territory, meaning they've just gone so high, they're just hanging up in the clouds right now. We looked at some of those and talked about that last week. As always, I'm just going to go ahead and tilt my camera a tiny bit here. If you missed anything, you can always go back on YouTube and Facebook and you can watch those episodes. So don't miss that, because as you string together everything that we've covered, you're going to get a lot of amazing teaching and content from the Tradeway system. And speaking of the Tradeway system, tonight, like I said, what I want to do, instead of diving into something new or picking a sector, a stock, this, that, we've looked at so many different things. I just want to show you guys some patterns, right? I want to show you guys some good patterns, because as you guys have been working with me in this particular program, it's definitely, I hope, helped us understand that there is a dividing line just between a stock that's going up and a stock that has an opportunity for us to get in. Now, we've talked a lot about the S&P. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me go ahead and pull that chart up first. Ticker SPX. Share my screen so y'all can see what I see. All righty, so there we go. So one of the things we've talked about over the last little while, and by last little while, I'm specifically looking at this frame of time. It doesn't want to draw for some reason. Right in here, okay? And even maybe more accurately, let's even just go ahead and pull that back to this move down here. You know, the market just went up. It didn't hardly take a break. We've talked about that on here before. What's the trick? Well, the trick is that on one hand, you're looking for an entry into the market and you don't want to miss the market. Why? Because it just keeps going up. But on the other hand, what's an entry? Okay, so let's go back to the fundamentals today. That's what we talked about on the S&P, but I want to just show you some patterns. These are stocks that have been or they have been doing well or are doing very well, but there are some patterns that are present on the screen, and I want to give you guys some quick practice. It's visual, some comments. If anybody wants to ask any questions as we're going along, then you can do that. This is a very cool thing to be able to do. In our program, our Trader Pro program, that is our premium membership to train you into how to be a trader, ultimately transforming you into being a trader. We do a live session like this, okay? We actually do multiple live sessions with our Trader Pros throughout the week. Obviously, for us tonight, the market is closed, but you get a little bit of a preview of some things that we might do. Normally, that would mean you get to send in tickers, thoughts, questions to me or whoever's hosting, and then we could go and we can look at it live in the market environment that is live, and then that helps you understand as well as apply and make some buying and selling decisions, but do so in real time. So that is a huge thing. Tonight, we're going to get a little bit of a flavor of that, and I hope you guys enjoy it, but you are invited to send in your comments and let me know what you're thinking, looking at in terms of some stocks, or mostly, I presume, probably tonight, some questions you might have regarding what I'm showing you guys. That said, I know some of you are watching by recording, so we're glad to have you here. We always are. I know not everybody can always join us live. That's the benefit of being on live, is being able to interact with myself, asking those questions, getting those answers. But we're glad to have you tonight anyway. And as I said, in our memberships, you have the ability to access that at any time. So if you're ready to take that step, then you will be able to join us with so many different opportunities. Let's see. Jeffrey is commenting here. An excellent talk at the summit. Jeffrey, I was almost tempted to do that tonight, but that's not really the format of our program. Jeffrey's referencing a session I did a couple hours ago on procrastination and the conviction that I have, I think many of us have, that procrastination is actually literally, it's an enemy. It's an enemy in our lives. And so we took some time to look at, how do I see procrastination for what it really is? More than just this thing we all do, more than just some time management term and concept, and really something that I believe is used against us, that we partner with, and it actually steals our future. It steals the prosperity and the growth that is meant, it's stored up for us, but it can steal, like the thief who steals, kills, and destroys, by putting things off. So that's what we talked about. I know that when I'm speaking to you guys, you're already overcoming a lot of that, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't. In fact, some of you I know were on the Word on Investing Summit, and you're here. So that's great. I'm so thankful for that. You guys are overcoming that because you know where you want to seek an investment in you, and you're doing it. Jeffrey says, was today an inside day? I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to, so you can just give me a little bit of clarity on that. If you're referring to the market or myself, I don't know exactly. Susan is tagging people like crazy as always. If you guys are on live right now and you're wanting to tag somebody else, let them know that we are here and we are live. You can go ahead and pop that in there so some folks that are in your life are able to watch this as well. Like I said, tonight, we're going to do something really straightforward. I'm simply going to show you some patterns because, again, Stock Talk is about something being hot or not. And it's getting this multifaceted, not to overcomplicate it, but to educate and understand that a hot stock has entries, right? That is where we are able to actually objectively make a plan for a stock trade. And that requires that we have patterns. So we're going to look at patterns. So we have hot stocks, but they're also in solid patterns. Sometimes, yeah, but a lesson learned, Troy said. And we all, I see what you're saying, Jeffrey. Yes. I can, I don't know if it's just too small. The candle itself today, Jeffrey's got a question there. I should pop this up on the screen. There we go. Was today smaller than yesterday's candle? And yes, the wicks extended beyond it. The body itself is inside. So not a pure inside bar, but the body itself is inside of yesterday's movement. So that's what Jeffrey's question is regarding the candlesticks here on the screen. Okay. Ruben, Brenda, Troy, Jeffrey, Susan, thank you guys for commenting and being on here. Thank you guys for coming on, spending some time with me live. We're going to go ahead. I just want to show you some patterns. You know, I talk about patterns as a Tradeway coach. And when I do, I will often say, you know, I'm looking for A+. I'm looking for A+. I was even trading just the other day. And as I finished and closed out the trade, I had to ask myself, okay, was that really A+? It's a good question for me to ask, of course, more importantly, before the trade, but then to even assess afterwards and say, wait, was that an A+? Am I sticking with what I consider to be A+? Now, I don't want to be general. I don't want to be nebulous or unclear about what A+ would be. And in our programs, we go into much greater detail onto exactly what we are looking for and some of the things that make a pattern less than A+ for me, or maybe make it an A+. But I can tell you tonight, one of the things, and this was basically the criteria that I used to select the patterns that I looked for tonight, is they are just clear, okay? They're just clear. They're not super complicated. They're not messy. They're not hard to find. I don't have to break out a shovel and dig around and find these. They're just clear, clean patterns on the chart. Sometimes I'll have a student get me to look at a pattern and it actually could be a profitable trade, right? We can get in any stock and it could be a profitable trade. And if the student, or even in some cases the coach, is using a chart that doesn't necessarily have a very clear pattern, okay? They may be seeing something that they've seen before, and they can use that and actually have a profitable trade. So it is always possible. I'll just say that as a disclaimer up front. But what I like to find, and certainly what I like to teach from, is clean, very clean. And I'm going to show you, of course, as we go through what I mean by that. Okay? Back to our S&P. Different kinds of patterns. Okay? Now, I took the lines off of some of these. I believe we have looked at this pattern before. So now, would you say this pattern is hot or not? Hot or not? Well, first of all, I said it, right? There is a pattern, right? There's a pattern here. And I like to say mountains or peaks and valleys just as a simple visual description of what my eyes immediately gravitate towards on a chart like this, okay? They, 1, 2, 3, 4, these mountains or these peaks and valleys, like mountains do, stick out, right? They stick out so quickly. And when you learn to look for that and you find a chart that is very, very clear, then it doesn't take long to recognize it, right? You can find them. Now, I will say this. There is more to what we do than simply find a pattern and just go out and trade it. So for those of you who maybe have not, I know there's some people on here who are in our programs. I know there's some people on here who've maybe never heard me or anybody at Tradeway teach before. You're brand new to stocks. You maybe are just getting started. There are other pieces to the puzzle here, right? They're simple, they're clear, and we help people walk through that process every day. But there is more to the process than just finding the pattern. But this is a huge part of it, and it's an exciting part of it that so many of us can practice doing, okay? So that's what we get to do tonight. But I did want to lay out there that it's not the only thing. So I'm not suggesting that let's look at these patterns and turn right around and go out and buy them. There are some other things we need to do. We talk about the three-legged trading table, okay? there's really three things we're looking for before we're going to seriously look at entering any trade. Okay, one of those legs is technicals, what we call technicals, and that's what we're looking at tonight. So just know we're only looking at one leg here. Now, if I take a simple drawing tool and drop in a line like that, I'm going to do this here. Just adjust it a little bit. You can see pretty quickly, anytime the stock gets around that line that I just put in there, and I can go here, and then I'm actually going to go like this. My stand is a little bit different tonight, so it's a little tricky to pop these trading lines in. So then I would do something like that. Now, if you put those lines on there, if you found this pattern and you felt confident putting those lines on there, I put that bottom line along the 50-day moving average, that blue line that's in the bottom of the pattern. Talked about that on these programs before, more so on the Market Monday broadcast that we do at the same time on Mondays. Remember, you can go back and watch those episodes in the past as well. So make sure you do that. But I drew it on that line. It's not that it's very hard to see, right? It's not very hard to see. So what do we have here? Well, we clearly have a hot stock. I mean, we do. We have a hot stock. This stock has gone from, I have to move something on my chart here, November, right? Let's say October 30th. So basically the beginning of November, right? Just until barely halfway through the spring, not even. Right, April 5th, November to April, it went from $125 to $215. It's a very hot stock. But when you go out and you look for stocks, we've got to cut out some of the noise. How am I going to know which one over another one? This is a very, very simple yet helpful tool. It takes practice, takes time. And as I said, it's one of the three legs that we teach in the program. However, it's very important. So you can see where we're at, and it comes into this area and it bounces up. Now you'll notice today we had this earnings coming right up, right? So that's going to change and add some things to the pattern. We have some very specific rules when it comes to how we do earnings. So that is also something that we would teach you how to do, because we've got to be careful with what happens around earnings. That's something to think about on this pattern. But just visually, is that, would you say, you could drop it in the comments right now, is that a clear pattern? I mean, I got two. I got my, my talking head and my chart up on the screen, and it shrinks it down almost, and it's even more clear to me. That is a very, very easy to see pattern, right? Very easy to see pattern. So I really like that one. Jeffrey says, how would you grade the pattern on the S&P right now? I'm going to come back to that, because I could give a lot of thoughts on the S&P. And of course, in our programs, like I said, we do go over that quite a bit. Jeffrey gets to be a part of that. Also says clear pattern on NXPI. And it is. It's a very clear pattern on NXPI. So we'll come back to that. All right, let's keep moving here. Let's keep moving here. All right, now look at that. Now that chart kind of feels like, okay, is that a hot stock? Well, this industry certainly has been hot. Okay, but let's look for the pattern in here. Let's look for the pattern in here. Where would that be? Well, how about something like this? Just roughly speaking. Now, we've got this move down here onto that 100-day, that gold line. But this is really, right now, it's moving sideways, okay? And depending on whether we went off the wicks of these candlesticks here or the bodies, which I would have likely gone off the bodies. So this went down, but that's why I think these trading lines are important. Now, earlier today, this candlestick was all the way up. Right? It was green. That one on the far right of your screen was green. The market pulled back pretty significantly today on some news. Okay. The president dropped some, I guess it was Reuters that posted an article saying that maybe there would be a change in the long-term capital gains tax, which actually we talked about extensively on Market Monday, just this past Monday. So very interesting news to have that come out now. If you missed that, you can go back and check it out. But that dropped the market. That also sunk this stock. But it's really in this sideways rolling channel, right? It gets into this level, it goes up, down, up, down, up. And again, we were up higher there earlier today. So there is more of a sideways movement, right? Not as hot. Still a pattern, still adds some method to the madness, if you will, but not as hot. Definitely moving sideways. I'll be interested to watch the travel stocks in the days to come. That's the cruise lines, that's the rental cars, that's the airlines, a lot of these in particular, as the federal government talks about things opening up more in mid-May. We'll see how the numbers really pick up. We have to remember that a lot of the news we hear is already priced into the market, right? It won't be priced into the market in mid-May when it actually opens up if it was announced in early April, right? Wall Street's going to respond to that pretty fast. It's already priced into the market. So that said, I'm still interested to see where travel stocks go, because from pre-COVID levels, we've talked about this on here before, some of these are still pretty far down, okay? But this one is definitely moving sideways, and there is a pattern there for that, okay? This one also moving sideways, right? But remember what I said about A+. Remember what I said about clean, right? We've definitely got a line here. And we've got something up here, but not as clean. Kind of just floating in the middle right now, right? Kind of just floating in the middle. So I don't like that one as much, right? Example, you can kind of contrast the two, because right now it's just indecision. It's just in the middle. It's not really doing anything. So we just move on. Now this one I left the lines on. That is a very hot stock, all right? Again, let's look at this. In mid-September, the stock is worth $22, okay? It has doubled. Well, almost, not quite. On this day, it would have doubled, but it's not quite doubled. But it's just faithfully, with the exception of these 2 days here, which was earnings, these 2 days, which didn't actually close, right? Those are just wicks. It's just glided up along these lines the entire time. Okay? So that's a stock, very hot, right? Very hot. Not just like we looked at Home Depot, right? And that just seems to be going up so quick, or so steady so quickly. This one's moving quick, but not that quick. What's really hot here is that it's just not actually really ever dropping, right? It's just not selling off. It won't go up forever, but it's been going up a long time, right? It's been going up a long time. It's doing very well. Health technology, in this case, doing very well. All right. I want to look at this next one too. Okay. Netflix. Interesting here. Definitely looks like it's going sideways. I mean, if we put this line on here, we've definitely got something in that area, right? It's visually, it's not perfect, because we could also kind of pop one in there, couldn't we? But it's definitely not making a bunch of higher highs. It's not going higher, but the lows are getting higher, right? The lows are going like that. So what do I have here? Okay. Looks like kind of an upside down doorstop, doesn't it? Right? It's a wedge. That's what that is, right? It's a wedge. So we have a wedge pattern. What I think is interesting about this is we had a pattern. It's moving. It's hot here, but it's not so hot there, is it? So it's actually not selling off to lower levels every time, but it's also not breaking into new highs yet. So there's some pressure building. And when the pressure builds on these, we call that moving into, I'll highlight this for you over here, We call that moving into the squeeze point, okay? Because eventually, if this thing keeps going back and forth in these lines, it's going to have to break out and do something. What's interesting is today, it dropped down on earnings, right? They reported earnings, and it dropped into that line, right? That line is simply from drawing a trend line like I have here off of these lows. See, this low was down here, but then the next one was a little higher. This one was a little higher. That one was a little higher. And then it gaps down and it's right there, just a little bit higher. So it really does use these lines, and we'll see where it goes from here to see if this one's going to get really hot again, break out of that wedge, or if it's going to break down. Now, typically, this is what we call an upward wedge. So it is actually building some momentum on the upside. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to work, but it is definitely building some buying pressure because they're not letting it go down as low every time. There you go. Very simple look at that pattern. Look at this stock. How hot is this? Okay, let's look at August, $23. It's almost tripled, right? It's almost tripled. It's not even May. So this is a really hot stock, but what do we do with this? What do we do with this? Well, let's go ahead and draw a line on here. What if I just did something like that? Suddenly, man, we're making some sense here, right? Clone that guy, and then I can just pop this guy right in here. Something just like that. I can always do another one, and you guys know I like to do this. Just give myself a second line in there. Look at that pattern. That's a nice, clean pattern. You have the 20-day moving average. You've got a nice looking pattern. Yesterday, it hits support. Back up it goes. Right? Hot stock, but also clear pattern. Because what do we do with a stock that's going like this, but doesn't really give us a place to enter into the stock? Other than building a habit that says, if I see a hot stock, I'm just going to go ahead and hitch myself to it and see what happens. But that's guessing, that's gambling, that's going for it, and that's not what we're doing here. That's not what we're doing here, because you can't repeat that over time, okay? Here, I wanted to show you guys this one. Let me go ahead and just quickly check for questions. Clear pattern, rolling up. Netflix is going to make some lemonade. Netflix lost a lot of subscribers. They made a ton of money, but they lost a lot of subscribers. I think Disney Plus is doing some damage there. I don't know how many of you guys are subscribers to either of those, but definitely there are some shifting numbers there. So we had this great pattern, and then it bailed, right? It wasn't any good to us for a while. Well, what happened? It went on a crazy run back into this range, and now, whoa, I'm losing my setup here. Now we're back into this range, and we'll see if this thing comes back into support here. Let me go ahead and blow this up for you guys, right? I wanted to show you something where a stock comes back into those old lines. It's just kind of a mess in there. But these old lines, which if you ever see one of our coaches, Jeffrey Nance, you'll notice that he keeps so many old lines on his charts. You can hardly even tell what's happening, but he knows how to sift through it, and it works for him, so he does that. But it's coming back into here, and we'll see. If this drops down, it could just resume that pattern. Stocks do that all the time. Okay, they do that all the time. And by the way, finding these patterns tonight, this wasn't something that took me 45 minutes to go out and find patterns. I literally pulled up one of my watch lists and took about 15 to 20 minutes max with some interruptions to find these patterns out in the market. So this isn't just some cherry-picked thing that we can do every once in a while. There are a lot of patterns out there. Here's another really clean one, right? Here's a jewelry company, retail. Retail's doing well. It's the next one up. Right? It's coming in. It's doing this nice uptrend off that 20-day. Hot stock, got to have a pattern. Now this one, I would say it's a good pattern, not as clear, not as picturesque, okay? This is not necessarily right off that white line, right on support. So for me, maybe not an A plus, certainly is a good looking bounce at support here, but some factors here that we could look at that make it not so much A plus to me, but we'd have to dig in a little deeper on those. So that one's a little bit lower. Now here's something I wanted to show you. Now this is a bit of a treat tonight. I'm going to say this for you guys, okay? Because, like I said, we go in every Wednesday, or excuse me, I do it every Wednesday. I should correct that. I go in every Wednesday and I get to hang out with our trader pros, and we do this for an hour in the live market. We actually do that every day. But that's something that is offered inside of our memberships. What I'm showing you here is really, I'm describing and showing you good patterns. These are some of the things that at one point we would only ever do inside of our program. So I'm giving you a good inside scoop. And I say that at the end of our broadcast today because I want to tell you what I'm going to show you now is going to be extremely valuable. I think this is a pretty good piece of value here that's going to help some of you guys who are wanting to get into trades, hopefully avoid some headaches, some losses, and understand how to get in stocks at a better time than you might otherwise have been getting in. So what's happening here? Okay. Well, if we look in the short term here, it was doing a downtrend, right? We had this major line here where you can see my gold lines, but it was doing a downtrend. It actually broke that, kept going, came up, and instead of falling and making a lower low, which made a high, made a low, made a high, made a lower low, high, lower low, high, lower low, high, even lower low, right? You get the picture. It keeps making lower lows. It's driving to a lower price every time it falls, right? This is understanding price action, right? Now it goes up, but it can't make a lower low, right? It comes down, but it doesn't come down as far as it did. So now it starts to go up. You know what most folks would do? I'll say it this way. What Joe Retail, I apologize if there's anybody out there named Joe today. I'm not referring to you, but Joe Retail Trader just goes, ooh, it's going to break out of the downtrend. And he's just going to buy it right away. Well, what's the problem? A lot of times it fails. It did that here. It did that here. It didn't, in this case, do it here. But one of the things we always talk about on our broadcast is if a stock is going to change trend, meaning it's downtrending, but we want it, obviously, if we're going to buy stocks, right, we want it to go up. Wait until it breaks out, closes outside of the downtrend, closes there, makes a pullback, establishes a higher low, and then moves up from there. Moves up from there. And that's exactly what this one did. So if you caught what I said there, that's a very, very useful tool for you when you're looking at price patterns. Jeffrey says, we subscribe to Netflix, but we just changed the level we pay. No more DVDs in the mail. I didn't even know they still did DVDs in the mail, Jeffrey. I have to be totally honest with you. I had absolutely no idea that they did that. So I think, yes. Okay, let me go ahead and stop that screen share. So that is kind of putting some of the pieces together, right? Very simple. How do I understand how to take a hot stock left to right on that chart? Man, it's really moving up, but I've got to put some method to the madness. What are some things? We showed some patterns, I think, that look very clear. We showed some patterns that could work. The lines are there, but they're not as clear. They're not as nice. They don't jump out at you. They're harder to see. They can be harder to manage. The movement is not as clean. The buying and selling is not as quick and clean. So you can look for patterns that are clear. And obviously, if you're getting into any of our memberships, then you can work with us on what are those other legs of the trading table. Now, I talk about those memberships on here because that ultimately is how we get to the place of implementation. That's how we get to the place of developing the skill. We can get tidbits of information. And I mentioned, if you watch the whole series that we've been doing on here on Mondays and Thursdays, even we have a trading tip Tuesday now, you can put a lot of pieces together, right? There is some good stuff there. You're going to have an idea of what's on the dashboard. But if you really want to learn to be confident and drive the car, then you got to get into one of the memberships with us. So I'm going to post a link for you guys on that, along with that word on investing on here, so that you guys can join up on those if you're interested in seeing that. That is a simple way to get into, ultimately getting into trading. So thank you guys so much for being on here. If there's no more questions, I will definitely, I will be checking back. We always do, just to see if anybody else is commenting on here. And with that said, thank you guys so much for being on. We're back on Monday, and we will see you then. Good night, everybody.